The long and short of it are a duo, David Baird and Patsy Toop, who have released 6 albums and 2 EPs and won several awards. And their latest album is Midnight Choir. We're going to have a chat about it. Hello, Patsy and David.
Hello, Sophie.
G'day,
How are
Sophie.
we?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very happy to be talking to you. I've been so enjoying your album and your lovely songwriting and your singing together and your sound. So, but I thought actually I would start at the beginning of your respective musical journeys in life. So, Patsy, I thought I'd ask you when you first had a relationship with music.
Well, when I was very young, actually, I think I started learning the piano, actually, classical piano, when I was probably about 6 or 7.
Right.
And yes, the forced sessions, every night with my mother sort of standing over me, asking me to, practice. But it was really interesting because where that sort of ended up, of course, was singing around the piano and having a great time with family and friends. And that's probably where the love of playing for the voice and just for those fun times with family started. But I actually got to quite a high level with classical music, and but I stopped when I went to high school,
right?
And then when I did that, I didn't resume it until recent times. When I say recent, because Dave's just reminded me that we've been singing together, believe it or not, for 15 years. Which is horrifying because I keep saying 10 and I'm counting backwards. But yes, but when we first met, Dave said, look, you're standing there like a shag on a rock. I think you really need to engage with your keyboard and start providing some support for the duo. So that's kind of where we got back into it again, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a shag on a rock. That's a fairly stern phrase.
Oh, it was. Don't worry. That's where I got it. I got it. And it was very hard because when we started singing together, we were doing, just little acoustic sets. And Dave, he was playing the guitar and stomping and, working up a sweat, doing the lead vocals. And there I was I think I had a tambourine at times and, trying to do a few harmonies. And it was true. It looked a bit awkward.
So when you look back now at those years of playing piano, learning, and I did it too, I've got to learn your scales and do your drills and all that sort of thing. Do you feel like that was great preparation in hindsight?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only thing is, though, Sophie, intriguingly enough, is that I'm very good at reading music because of that classical background. But when it comes to playing and feeling and doing chords and just, infills, I don't have the music to follow. So I had to really change my style. It's almost like going to become a jazz pianist, but I'm not. But, I had to completely change. And that was really fascinating. It took me quite some time to actually do that.
Yeah, I've often wondered whether learning to read music young means that you have to really learn those other skills in quite a different way, that you can't play by ear, for example.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I think I can play by ear, but I was never allowing myself to do so because of the classical background. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, because I just read.
Yeah, and it's right there in front of you. David, for you, when did music start?
It started fairly early on for me. I remember having a ukulele and many other instruments when I was about 5.
Yeah, right.
And I really took to the ukulele and was playing that quite well at my age. And then started guitar lessons when I was 8. And I also learnt classical for about 3 years. And then I sort of moved more to contemporary sort of music. I found the acoustic guitar a lot more interesting. Right. And I naturally wanted to, play and sing more contemporary sort of styles of music. And sort of started jotting down some tunes at a fairly young age. And I had friends that I went to school with that played guitar, so we all used to jam together. So that's where my journey in music started very, very early on.
So when you say you found the acoustic guitar more interesting, is that because you felt like you could get different sounds out of it that weren't there on an electric guitar?
That's right, yeah. Many years of playing the classical guitar, and when I'd hear other musicians playing the acoustic guitar, I just loved the sound of it. I knew I had to have one.
Right.
So I got my first. Well, I did play on a classical guitar for a very, very long time, and it wasn't until I was 21 that I got my first really nice acoustic guitar, and I still play that today as well.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
I've got quite a few guitars. As a guitar player, you can never have too many guitars.
So I have heard this from many musicians who seem to just collect guitars.
Yes, yeah, and it's the collection is growing
Right.
all the time. Yes,
And
Well,
unfortunately, I should say too, the studio, we've got a music studio here, and the equipment in that studio is growing too, I might add, Sophie. So I think we're impoverished all the time. We're beholden to our musical instruments.
Well, I guess technology changes, and just particularly because with keyboards, the technology changes there as well. So
Yeah.
obviously the two of you have this very extensive background in music separately. How did you start creating music together?
That was quite interesting.
well, it was 15 years ago, like Patsy said, not 10 years ago.
Oh dear.
So it's time really flies when you're having fun, I suppose, and you just lose track of it. But it was one of my first public performances, and I was playing at a little tavern in Williamstown called the Pirates Tavern, and there was an Irish folk band playing there, and I happened to know a couple of the guys in that band, and they said, look, just to get some confidence up, you sounded really good, and you're a very competent solo performer, so you should come and do a couple of songs in our break.
Right.
So I did, and I was very, very nervous still. I think I used to close my eyes because I couldn't look at the audience in front of me. That's how nervous I was. It took me probably a couple of years to get over that, but that's where Patsy first heard me. She was the president of the organisation, the Williamstown Maritime Association down there, and
Right.
she was it was a fundraiser actually, and she was
I was on the sausage sizzle.
she was doing doing a sausage sizzle, and she heard me and came in. She thought our voices would be very complimentary, so she approached me after my little set and asked me if I wanted to do a duet with her.
Right.
And I didn't really know what to say at the time.
He went
especially-
white and ran away.
I was going to say,
Actually,
especially David, if you were feeling nervous, that would have been quite something for someone to come and say that to you.
Yeah, and I really didn't know what to say, and I think I said something like,
I'll think about
"Can
it.
I think about it and get back to you?"
Yeah.
But it
And
turned out she was right.
And Patsy, when you heard him singing and you thought your voices would go well together, had you been singing with other people so that you were used to how voices might match together?
Not really, but again, I think it comes back to the piano, because you're always playing in chords, you're always listening to the notes, not just the one, not just the single note. But I was taking vocal coaching. I was with a local vocal coach, and so I was feeling more confident about singing.
Mhm.
And I was mesmerized actually by David's voice. I think he's got an amazing voice, and but I did sense that there was some complementary elements there. So that's what happens.
And Patsy's she's a very natural harmonizer. So I can harmonize a lot better now than I used to, but it doesn't come as natural to me as it does to Patsy. She could do it. Actually, we were going to the same vocal coach.
Unbeknownst to both of us, yeah.
Unbeknownst to us, and we found out later.
Mm.
And so he started to coach us
As a duet.
as a duo.
Yeah.
And he was really surprised when Patsy was in the room one day, and I think she came in. She was having a lesson after me, and she just started to harmonise to what I was singing. And I don't think he could believe it. He just went, "Wow, that's nice," Yeah.
Well, and it is a skill harmonizing, but I think there is a lot of intuition involved. So Patsy, have you often found, did you find yourself when you were younger harmonizing along to songs you heard on the radio, for example?
I think I did, actually. I think you're right, Sophie. Yes, I would always try and find the other line.
Right.
And I do it today. If I'm in the car and I'm listening to artists, I'm always trying to sing the harmony line as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm doing it all the time. It's true. Yes.
I wonder if it's partly because you're just really interested in music, and so you're interested in finding out what else is in the piece of music.
I think that's right too. I do love, I do love harmonies. I love singing them, and I really am and I find it really challenging at times because, you know, sometimes we layer the harmonies as well. So I've got to sing several versions of the same line, you know, when we're recording, but which is fun. But yeah.
So it sounded like it didn't take much effort for the two of you to sing together, because certainly the sound that's on the album I've heard recently, Midnight Choir, you know, it's a really effortless blending of your voices. So was that there from the start?
I would say it was. It was just a good blend. Of course, just refining. It's just refining over the years and practice, and just kind of knowing what each other are going to do. And Patsy's, so familiar we're so familiar with singing with each other now. It's sort of like second nature, I suppose. But I would say that it was a good, it's like one of those fluke blends.
Right.
That,
in fact, you're quite right about that, Dave, because people have often asked if we're related.
Right. Because
you get really good harmonies in families, you know.
Yeah.
And because there's that same tone, there's a similar tone in the voice. And and surprised when we say that we're not, because of that tone, because of that connection. Yeah. And sometimes we've actually had on the odd occasion when we're really on the note, really centered on the note together, you can hear almost a third harmony, like they call them ghost harmonies. Right. And it happens when you're really centered on the note together. And there's almost that vibrato ring tone, and it sounds a bit like a ghost in the background. Sometimes we can do that too, which is pretty exciting when that happens.
And hopefully you're recording when it happens.
Yes, absolutely.
So after that initial request from you, Patsy, that you sing together, or suggestion rather than request maybe, you obviously decided to form a band formally and give it a name. Where did the name come from?
I think, Patsy's she's very tall and I'm very short. So that's where the name came from. And probably that's why I was a little bit scared as well when she approached me. I went, "Oh, who is this massively tall woman asking me to So it didn't take much to come up with the name. Just sort of stating the obvious, really.
Yeah, really it does. And it takes because, Sophie, I hate to admit this, but I was talking to a person at Tamworth once, and we were performing, I can't even remember where, and they were at the back and they didn't have their glasses on, and she turned to her husband. She confessed this to me afterwards and said, "Oh, isn't that really lovely? A mother and son act, because Dave, you're so short." And
well, I just think that just shows how young that I look.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much, Dave. And so that was quite funny, but when they heard him singing, they realised he was no child.
Not a child, yes. So when you were forming the band and thinking about creating songs together, did you have a particular sound in mind? Because you have some elements of traditional country and some contemporary country. Is that a vision that was there from the beginning?
I don't think so. I think it just happened. I think it's just happenstance, if you like. We just we come up with ideas. We write ideas all the time, in a diary or on the phone. I lost my phone recently, so I lost all of the ideas.
Oh, no.
But oh my heavens, that was tragic. But so we'll be just driving along, and Dave might say something really quirky, and that's a great line in a song. I'm going to put that down. I think that's fantastic. But in terms of the evolution of the music, Dave is more responsible, and we co-wrote this album with Kenny as well, Kenny Royster, and those two sit on Zoom and strum their guitars and actually come up with the tunes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not always. There's no set formula for writing the song. Sometimes we'll have a melody and like a rhythm and a melody that's written on an acoustic guitar, and then an idea for a song might come, and then the title. And other times, we'll purely write from a title.
Right.
So, and it's, I think it's a mix of, I don't think you can really pigeonhole us in it's not all traditional, it's not all contemporary.
That's right.
It's so I think it's just, I don't know, it's just influenced by other artists, I suppose. And I sort of grew up listening to a lot of American country artists, and I think I was influenced a lot by that in the early stages of my career.
And Patsy, what did you grow up listening to?
Similar things, but a lot of my parents were a lot older, so I grew up to a lot of the post-war, songs. Glenn Miller Band was a favourite of my dad's, and Ella Fitzgerald, and a lot of those, fantastic, singers. So yeah, that was kind of my upbringing. But I mean, as a teenager and so forth, I mean, I've got a very eclectic sort of lot of songs. I listen to everything and anything, really. I mean, I love the blues, I love rock. I'm particularly passionate about country because the lyrics are so sincere, and you can hear the lyrics and you can relate to the lyrics in the song. So it's like poetry. And I really find that is the most stunning element of country music, which you don't get in a lot of other genres. I often have trouble listening and understanding the lyrics. I mean, some songs, the beats and everything are great, but I can't fathom what they're saying, and that's very different for us. I mean, we always write poetry. We always try to write a story,
Yeah, I completely agree with that regarding the genre, because one of the things I've loved about Australian country music in particular is how articulate the singers are, and that I can hear everything. And having seen a lot of, indie rock and pubs and things, and sometimes not being able to understand anything.
No, sort of,
it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to hear what you intend to the audience to hear. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's really important to us, because I think Dave was saying the other day, and I'm not speaking for you, by the way. I do the harmonies for you, but don't necessarily speak for you. But you were commenting about how the greatest gift that a musician has is to actually impart emotion, into the audience that's listening to the song. And when you can actually get, somebody to say, to have a tear, or, or they come up afterwards and they relay their own story that they perceive is the reason for that song, it's just, that is just so fantastic. It's just, you really feel as though you've achieved something with your creativity.
It's like, I suppose it's like giving a part of yourself to somebody, something special that they couldn't otherwise get any other way except through song. And especially if it's something personal, I think people can really hear the heartfelt, emotion in someone that's singing from the heart. I definitely, and for me, if it puts a tear in somebody's eye or a smile on somebody's face, that it makes you proud and think, well, that's your gift as a singer songwriter. You've actually moved someone emotionally, and that's the biggest reward, I think.
Well, certainly on Midnight Choir, I can hear emotions, and it does feel like a journey through various experiences. So when did you start writing for this album, start creating it all together?
Well, it actually goes back to 2016, believe it or not.
Oh.
Couple of the songs Dave and Kenny wrote back, Forever Girl and Change How You See the World, they were written back in 2016 and revived for this album.
We tried to squeeze them into the previous album, but we just simply ran out of time. We were in Nashville and we had to get back home, and we already had 12 tracks on there anyway, so we thought, no, let's leave that for the next album. So, and we sort of didn't listen to the demos for those for a long time, and when we sort of looked at them again for this album,
they were very fitting.
Sort of, they were really, they stood the test of, they were great, and so we thought, no, they're going to go on. So,
and then the others we started writing over a period of time. I guess this album, the balance of the album, probably we started writing about 2 years ago, around the time when COVID really hit.
Right.
And of course, we had more time on our hands to write, and during that time, we also completed our recording studio at our business, and that was fantastic, because even though we couldn't go to Nashville to record the album because the the music's recorded in, you know, Nashville, we were able to do all the vocals here.
Right.
So we Zoomed, well, more so, probably not so much Zoom, but what do we do?
There was a we recorded in a program called Pro Tools, which has an app called Listen To.
Right.
So someone, you know, on the other side of the world can actually
listen
into the session. And this is what Kenny, Kenny, our producer, he's a world-class vocal coach, and he really knows how to get the best
out of your vocals,
out of you, you know, vocally. So he was coaching us all the way from Nashville. He was listening in on all the sessions, and you know, and we didn't know how it was going to work. He'd only done it once before, and there was only something like a 0.5 of a second delay.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
So it worked really, really well.
And I was the one that kept getting, Patsy, you can do it again. You know, I think you got a few of those too, but anyway.
By the end,
you can do better.
I don't like this app.
You can do better.
He's pretty tough, but I mean, that's what you want, I suppose. If you're trying to produce a world-class album, you want someone to be tough.
Yeah, very much so. And he's great. He also vocal coached Luke Coombs, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and if we could get 1 billion streams on one of our songs, I'd be very, very happy too. You know?
I know, it's a whole new environment, isn't it, with streams. So how long did the recording take all up, given you were working like that?
We were doing it in blocks of, like, you know, might have been a couple of days here and there. It might have been a week. We were able to block out, and trying to work with the time difference as well. Was a bit interesting. So we'd be at the start of our day, right, and Kenny would be at the end of his day. Yeah. So he'd do a whole day of recording in his studio and stay back probably till midnight,
right, with his time,
coaching us. But that's the only way we could really do it. And
I mean, he's invested in the album, because I mean, in the sense that he's our he's our co-writer in the album, so he really wanted to make sure that, you know, we were right on track with it all too. So in terms of time here, time there, I guess probably it was probably a 9-month exercise. You know, some time in the studio to get lay down some tracks and I mean bits and pieces of tracks. You know,
it would have been quicker if we had been in Nashville. It would have, the whole process would have, you know, of course, been a lot quicker. But it was just great that we were able to get it done this way. And, you know, there's no compromising in quality. We replicated the vocal chain exactly that he has over there in his studio. So he knew what he was working with. So.
I mean, really, look, it is extraordinary, isn't it, that you can work this way? And I guess COVID's accelerated the prospect of people working like this. But I wonder, it's so convenient, really, particularly when you're working with someone overseas, that no doubt it's here to stay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you know, just even the writing, you know, Zoom or Skype or whatever it is, the medium that you use, it's just amazing. Yeah. And being able to actually listen in on the sessions, and he's got the sessions there as well. So it's kind of like we're working in the same space. It was just amazing.
It is, it's phenomenal. Now I realise I've had you talking for quite a while, so I'm going to ask
Sophie.
I'm going to ask you one last question.
Yes.
And so this duo idea was Patsy's, and I'm wondering, like, I think maybe David, the question is for you. What do you love about being in a duo, since it was Patsy's idea in the first place? She clearly knew it was a great idea.
Well, it's good. We're very flexible, and we work very well together. I mean, it's we obviously get along really, really well, because you know, we have to spend lots of time together. So and the duo is very flexible. I think, you know, we do have a 5-piece band as well.
Yeah, right.
But there's plenty of work for duos. I like it because just of our relationship. We're good friends. And we love being in this business together. You know, finding work for a band is a lot harder, and it's harder to get everyone together, you know, for gigs and for rehearsals and stuff like that. So, I mean, I love the band as well, but, you know, we still do lots of work as a duo.
We're touring.
We're always going to be,
Yeah.
the duo.
We're touring next year and hopefully doing a lot of shows with the band. I mean, you know, like Dave said, you know, there's a lot more flexibility with the band because, you know, they can take another little element and play a little bit longer so that, you know, there's dancing. But as a duo, because the percussion that we run is the same as on the album, so we have that in the background and we've got to play to the percussion. So as a consequence, we can't deviate. It's very different. And I mean, unless we're doing something acoustically, which we often do, and we can just, you know, play along as we like. But if we're trying to be true to the album, it's a bit more difficult for us. So, but you know, we love it. I mean, we love being together. We love singing and writing and meeting people. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I think it's just so fantastic.
Yeah, and I think during COVID it was, it was all a bit depressing, and because we hadn't performed for such a long time, you know, I was doubting whether, you know, this was something I wanted to keep doing. And I think it was the first gig back down at the place that we met, the Pirates Tavern.
Yeah, right.
It made me feel so good, and I thought, no, how can I not do this? I love it too much.
Yeah.
And I do love that it's called the Pirates Tavern. That's great.
Actually, that's the backdrop for Midnight Choir on our video that we did for that particular track.
That was filmed down there. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, people can go and check out that video. Patsy and David, you are the long and short of it. And your new album is Midnight Choir. And it's been so lovely to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much,
for having
Sophie.
us.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.